Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this special meeting of the Hampstead School Board for Tuesday, January 6th, 2020. Nancy, will you please call the roll?
Jason Gerard, Caitlin Parnell.
Here.
David Smith.
Here.
James Sweeney.
Here.
Karen Yasenka. Here. Also seated at the board table is the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Phil Metcalf.
Thank you. If you want to, if you can stand for the pledge. It's over there. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on the agenda under current business is to look at the HEA tentative agreement ratification. I do want to go over just some of the main points of the tentative agreement which has been reached. This is for a 3-year period for July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. In case I didn't say it, this is the Hampstead Education Association agreement. The costs of the tentative agreement over 3 years are as follows. For year 2020 through 2021, $222,056. For school year 2021-2022, the cost is $221,755. For school year 2022 through 2023, it is $224,061. These increases reflect a 1.5% increase in the salary schedule for staff who are considered on step. These members will move up 1 step each year. For staff members who are no longer on the salary schedule, who are considered off step, these members will receive a 2.25% increase each year. Other significant revisions to the agreement under Article 11.3, professional workshops and conferences. If funds remain as of May 1st, members may request reimbursement for the cost of 1 additional workshop until May 15th. Any remaining funds will be distributed equally among the employees submitting requests up to a maximum of an additional $300 per person. For Article 14.1C, it is increasing the number of members eligible for the retirement incentive from 5 to 6 members. A few other minor changes to the agreement. Article 3.7, this article was removed since all the information is covered by current HIPAA laws. Article 1.4, all changes to Hampstead policies will be forwarded to building principals for distribution to all staff in their buildings. Article 4, updates to the grievance language reflecting current level 5 arbitration and procedures. Those are all the main points that I have. I know we have one member who sat on that negotiating committee. David, I don't know if you have any other comments or.
No, it was great to work with the teachers, the representatives, and I think after all, we got to a good deal. We all compromised on a lot of good things, so it's good.
If there are no other questions prior to calling for a motion, I would ask for a motion to ratify the HEA tentative agreement.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Any other questions or discussions on this item? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you to everyone who worked on this to get it done. Under other business or old business, I know we had some members ask for some additional information. Mr. Dowd, if you're available to talk about that, we're in reference to any changes that can be made to the dollar amount we were given for renovations to the 60s wing.
Yes, so we have a couple different breakdowns. The number has not changed dramatically. However, just in terms of what you have out there, obviously we're past the point of being able to request them on. The board voted to not look into bond. So I've created a couple schedules here of non-bond type options, non-project bond type options for, take my pass it down, relating to costs that would be somewhat doable. And really, I think there are only two possible phases of the project that would make any sense at all. So the first one is the 60s wing, and I will go through that with you. So I know the 60s wing is what we were looking at, and the initial proposal that we received was a total of $2,071,000. That was per the estimated project budget as of 12/10/2019 from Trident and Mr. Baroni. And since then, I've spoken with him on some of the elements to the project, in particular, the inclusion of dry fire pipes or fire suppression pipes that would be tied in at a later point, and removing those from the project brings the project down only $146,000. In addition to that, as part of the proposal that was submitted, the estimate on 12/10, we also had $40,000 included in soft costs for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and technology. I don't doubt that that's a number that we probably need some part of or some portion of, depending on how the project goes. I don't know that we need 40,000 of it. And as part of that project estimate, I have a copy of it that would be helpful for anyone to be interested in seeing.
Is it the same?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as part of that, we also had a contingency built in of 150,000, and we do have money in our budget for contingency purposes. Now, contingencies are vary widely depending on the nature of the project. Contingency in this case, I think, is somewhat, I don't want to say limited, but I think it's somewhat containable because we aren't digging a hole in the ground. We aren't looking to do anything dramatic. We know the state of the building, that 60s wing, although not great, we know it well enough to know that if there are unanticipated issues which come up, we do have some money in our operating budget to absorb some of that. We need for going some of the other projects, but in the interest of seeing the project move forward, I have included on the schedule to reduce that contingency, bringing the total project cost down to $1,735,000 for project purposes, for ballot purposes. So in this case, I would propose just, and whatever the board wants to do, I've put it out there. If you were looking to do something with this type of project on the ballot, have funding in capital reserve, the rest were a warrant article, that's what the numbers look like. I don't take any presumption as to what the board is going to do. I simply put the options out there. If that is something that's of interest to the board, to give some perspective as to what our funding options are and what the project costs. I have faith in the numbers that Mr. Roney puts together, and removing, for example, dry fire pipes, I'm confident that's a good number. Reducing soft costs, I do think we will have some of those soft costs for furniture, fixtures, and equipment for 40,000. I think we'll probably use 40,000. And reducing contingency of 150,000, we'll probably have some kind of expenses that do come up. And I think that if the board wanted to take that as a risk, that could be something to include in the budget. We didn't have other work that we have scheduled in the budget if that risk should materialize as an action. So I put that out there for consideration. The only, and just for perspective, we have a second project, which is the admin nursing suite standalone, that was phase C. That was for the front office space, administrative office space, and the nursing suite. Total project cost there per the 11/18/19 estimate was $1,745,000. So I don't see there to be quite as much room. I hadn't quite frankly explored. I think where that's new construction, you probably would be inclined to put dry pipes in, for sprinkler for the future, only because it's a lot easier to build it in certain pieces. Rather than retrofit where it's part of the retrofit. Anyway, the contingency there is $100,000. And in that case, I would not recommend taking out that $100,000 because, again, we're putting holes in the ground to put that project in. You don't know really what you may run into when you're working on something that's not well defined. You can run into a multitude of problems there. Looking at the total project cost of $1,745,000, warrant article maybe $995,000, capital reserve draw $750,000, something to that effect. I think it gets very difficult at this point, I think, in the budget process to look at money in the budget because we really can't run these projects, best way to put this, either it goes through the budget altogether, through the operating budget altogether, or it goes in as part of a warrant article. And the warrant article keeps it out of the budget, which is helpful for the overall budget number. But if there's a reduction in the budget and the warrant article doesn't pass, they don't really join together. So, in any event, I think this a proposal like this would deplete your capital reserve, but we do have a proposal to keep increasing that capital reserve. So I took a look at the 60 wing integration project, and the really phase C, the only other phase that to me looked like it would be workable as a standalone project, just to give some perspective as to what those numbers look like, what the overall budgetary warrant article impact. I hope this is helpful.
So the space upstairs that could be freed up from the standalone C phase, what was that gonna be used for? Was that discussed?
I think
Offices, in the original plan, what it was would be other district offices.
so. I think the idea would be to repurpose perhaps some of the office space that is now rather tight in the building, and that would then move some of that burden to that area, and then that would free up where those offices are now. Some of those offices are now. I don't know that we necessarily meet the goal if we're trying to increase classroom space. I don't know that we get a one-for-one. Dillard's here as well to speak to it if you'd like, but I don't think that we would be necessarily gaining classroom space, but we would be gaining user space.
Right.
Obviously.
And with the withdrawal possibly going through, we would need that.
And with phase C though, as I recall, that would also take into account some of the safety issues.
It would, and I don't know if we've had too many problems with it right now, but when you think about what that building has become, is really two separate, discrete spaces, right? Because it's been bisected by that stairwell, being off limits to the students and the staff who come to go. You're bisecting that building, so it would look to allow that space to open up again, and it would allow proper vetting of visitors to the building at one level. So certainly that's a point of consideration.
Dillard, for example,
Is there a way I can see this documentation? I really
Yes.
don't know how, what the structure of this.
Plan.
All phases, you know.
Jeff, was there any discussion with Gino about what the difference in cost would be about retroactively adding in the piping for the fire prevention?
No, meaning that we can take out 140,000, right? 146,000, but it's gonna cost us 200,000 to put it in later, right? That's a big
Well,
question.
that was my question.
That's a fair
And if we
question.
don't have it, that's fine.
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think the one thing that I'm considering is that if you ever were to do anything on the other side of that building, you're running pipes right to that section anyway. This doesn't address that stairway that's in that stairwell that's in that back section. And invariably, I think that whatever pipes we would be putting in would probably be disrupted by that removal at some future point. So whether it costs 146,000 or it costs more, I think that ultimately it's not, it's not like we can look at it and say, well, how much would it cost for the pipes in now, how much would it cost for the pipes in later? I think there'd be some retrofitting, even with the stairway we removed it to a bit later point. And quite frankly, if you're running pipes right through that section anyway, you're going right through that wing. What's your staging cost? What's the cost of getting the folks on site? You know, you're going to experience some benefit on that. Whereas the administrative wing, that's a dead end. And that's the pipes in there, new construction, you're putting brick, and, you know, all kinds of steel, things like that. That just makes a lot of sense to what we do now. You're gonna have to retrofit that section of the building. So I didn't ask him, and he didn't respond, which he expected to no matter what. I have copies I can
Thank you.
share.
I think I can answer the questions that you were starting to ask. So,
You know me, you know what questions I ask.
well,
I go to you guys, it's your house.
I'm looking at this, just for clarification, phase B is to basically wrap the 60s windows, is what I understand. Which would basically mean the envelope windows, the ventilation system would be upgraded. And then phase C, I think he's referencing pushing the administrative wing out in front of the building and the nursing suite. The question I would ask is, this ends up with no music room,
Correct.
which is very significant. That was a very significant portion of the conversation was, and that was, I think, what he was alluding to create some continuity within the building by having the nurses' offices in that location is wonderful. Not having a music room, which means the music's gonna go into a park, or we're gonna have to take another space in the building, which is a net loss. So that would be one of those pieces I would question, to be very honest. But I think going directly at the 60s wing resolves a very significant portion of the viability of the space. Just to add a little bit here, it does separate the building, and the children are going up and down those stairs, but we need to have adult supervision there. And I know some of you guys have been there with your kids at the end of the day. There's a significant concern because we have lots of extra adults hanging out there ready to pick up their children because parents that, or other people that choose to pick up their children that don't want them to be picked up at the other end of the building at the car. So that is a problem. So we either have to stop the practice of allowing the parents coming into the building to wait for their children there. We could have to go to something else. But that stairwell, that's probably the one time of the day is significantly compromised. And it does separate the children. So basically that section of the building, it's the gym, music room, cafeteria, is one part of our school. It's separated by this big stairwell. I also want to make, and Karen came by and visited the school the other day, and I did want to make a point of emphasis that front stairwell is a major traffic spot in our school. I am very concerned about having a very narrow stairwell in the 60s wing. And I know Mr. Dowd had alluded to this in some of the earlier conversations. Not having a stairwell in the 60s wing that fits the code compliance of today is exacerbated by not having all of the flow of the front of the building. Because if I have a first grader that needs to go upstairs to the library, they have to literally go to one of the back entrances, the old entrances, like the old 40s entrance or that 60s stairwell. Those are small. In previous years, we allowed them up and down the stairs. Not run. But yeah, it was a little bit more fluid. I would hope the 60s wing, and I don't know, Jeff, if this is part of the conversation, is to address the stairs, this phase B only portion. Does that address the stairs?
No, it does not.
It's not.
Okay. I would say that's one deficiency there. And the deficiency in phase C is not having an assigned music room, which is, putting music on a card happens in elementary schools. But I've heard a theme from this board about changing program. That's a very significant change program. And there's the traffic flow. We also are not addressing a big problem on the second floor of this building. You might remember my little chat last year and the March before. Bathrooms for children are a very significant problem upstairs at the school. So, if you wanted my straightforward thoughts, there you are.
Thank you.
So basically, it's just that all the needs that we've been speaking about
Yes.
are not only still there, but it's getting worse. You have more kids, you need definitely 2 more classrooms.
And we're at our largest number now that I've seen since the big boom back when I first moved into administration.
And we are at the point now where that facility is actually holding us back. and compromising the education that takes place. For example, in the library. Because the library is being used for for the library and ventures, there's not enough space to introduce other programs into the library.
Yes. One of the things you like to have in a library is not just books and, technology and modern day materials that children should be getting their hands on and using for learning, but an instructional space, and we really don't have that. Because the library, that piece that would be that is the ventures classroom. It would be ideal to have a separate classroom for the ventures program so it could function properly. The other part is all of our interventions are planned in very tight spots, and if our population shifts, which it does every few years, programming says that, we can't adapt as quickly and comfortably. And yes, I am speaking specifically to special education and programming manager. So right now we are, we're bursting at the seams. We need to remember that when we were looking at probably another 60 to 70 kids in this building, we had a significant number of students out in portables, not to mention storage out there.
Well, maybe we can bring them back again.
I mean, that would be the only viable solution that the communities can't really build to provide ample space. Either you build or you have to bring in portable space or just change program.
The problem with all of this is some of the things that are in the budget that we said no to, like at the middle school, when we said no to Mrs. Denola's, $13,000 for staging or for cafeteria tables. That's stuff that we could fix. We could fix that even tonight, with the time constraints. That's stuff that we could stuff in the budget. We could find room for that. But, after a conversation I had with Mr. Collins on Friday, the budget's really not going to be able to help with what he needs. Central School needs new facilities. And sticking this in the budget isn't really helping what he needs. He needs 2 new classrooms. So, not to go full circle, but actually, I would like to hear this because I missed the last meeting. I was away, I was out of town. And before I left, it was my understanding that we were going to have a meeting prior to tonight where we could discuss all our options again and maybe come up with something. There was one scheduled that got canceled, so we're here tonight, but because tonight we're running out of time, we can't even put anything on tonight as a bond. So my question to the board members who were here is, I would like to know what happened at that last meeting. I mean, what is your plan? To put nothing on, what is your plan going forward? If you weren't gonna put anything on, what was the plan? What did that look like?
So we had a workshop, again, you were away, but we had a workshop the day before our last meeting. We had Gino here, we also had Dennis Myers here. We had new numbers, well, we had the current numbers at that point for the different sections, which at that point was what my understanding is that we were looking at. Is that we were looking at doing this in phases because we had the potential for a building aid opportunity next year, perhaps even going forward after that. We asked them at that meeting on Monday to come back and give us what the number would be for just the 60s wing without the stairwell, because we were trying to find a way to do it with capital reserve and some sort of budgetary piece. I didn't expect that they were gonna come back at over 2 million. I mean, and I trust them, and I trust that that number is accurate. We got that number about noontime on Tuesday. And that is what I sent out to the board and what I presented to the board. We did have discussions that that number didn't work the way that there was a vision to try to do it in order to get something done this year, with the hope that then next year we give the project a better chance of passing because there is a better chance of building it. from my conversations and my understanding, prior to that workshop that we had on the 11th, I think we met on the 12th, I did not believe that a full project was still on the table. It seemed to me that our discussions were going towards phases. I think that's about it from the last meeting, but I could be wrong. If there's anyone else who wants to refresh my memory. I never intended at any point or thought that we would be going forward this year looking like we weren't going to be able to do something. I was very hopeful that the 60s wing was going to be feasible. But that number, even with capital reserve put into it, would have meant educational impacts for the kids. And yes, the environment that they're in is vitally important, but we would have been talking about people in order to squeeze the budget enough to make a 2.1 number work.
I guess I don't understand why nothing was put forward. I don't understand the reasoning. I just don't.
For me, the reasoning is that I want to give this project the best chance of passing as the biggest piece possible. And I think the only way right now, from what I've seen from the last 10 years, to do that is to put some faith and our resources, hopefully, into a building aid opportunity, which no, we don't know if we're going to get. We don't have any guarantee. And then to be able to go to the town next year on the ballot and hopefully be able to say, we have this opportunity for building aid. Because nothing in this town has ever passed without building aid for the schools, as far as large building projects in the last 30, 40 years. That was the reason that was my opinion and my view.
So there's no opportunity to put one of these two forward.
I'm open to discuss. I'm certainly not making the decision. I'm open to discussion, but we have to talk about how we do that. What are we taking out of the budget to make that happen? Because I will be honest with you, I don't think a warrant article at $1 million, a one and done, I don't have a huge amount of faith that it would pass. I mean,
Let the voters do that.
You know, here's the thing. I keep hearing, I don't think it'll pass. I don't think the voters will approve it. I don't think the taxpayers have an appetite for it. And I just have to say, you know, I guess we have different philosophical viewpoints on what our job is. I'm not that concerned. It's not my job to try and make people in this town vote for something. As a school board member, my only job is to put forth what we need based on what our educators, our staff, and what our construction people tell us we need. And I feel without doing that, we've abandoned our responsibility. I really feel that we've let down our kids and our staff by not putting this project forward again. There is absolutely no guarantee that it would pass. But one guarantee is for sure, that it's definitely not going to pass because it's not on the warrant.
but we've also been talking about for 3 months in our public meetings to let people know that there is a chance of building aid and there is a different way to look at this. So to then turn around and say, never mind, we're just going to put the whole project up, even though philosophically, I don't think we're that far apart, because I absolutely want to give this project the best chance to pass. I believe that what we've talked about is the best opportunity for it to pass in the largest piece possible.
I don't know how you know that.
I absolutely don't know that. I absolutely don't know that, but I know last year we were under 50%.
You were only under 50% of the actual people who voted.
But those are the people that have to pass it.
You don't know that. There are new people moving into town every day. There are people moving out of town. My only point is, we have no control over what the voters are going to do. Again, the only thing we have control over is putting forth what we know the school district needs. I'm not here to try and quote, and don't vote me in again, town, I don't really care. I'm not here to help Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer pay their bills If I wanted to do that, I could join the New Hampshire Taxpayer Association up in Concord and work on our tax structure in this state, which granted needs help. But that's not my job. My job is to only listen to these folks and put forward what our kids need. Even if it doesn't pass. If it doesn't pass, that's not our fault. At least we've done our job.
I feel like sitting in construction meetings and sitting in workshops and learning everything that we possibly can and looking at it in multiple different ways, I think that is doing our job.
Well, and we did that, and I did that for years. But the other thing you have to remember, this hasn't been years. This plan was a new design. This will have only been the third year for this plan. The other one was with Breadloaf. There were different price tags. It accomplished different things, and as needs changed, this was a new construction team, new construction committee. We had a project owner's manager working with us. This was a brand new plan, and this would have only been the third year. So after 2 years, we're saying, oh, we don't have faith it's gonna pass, let's try something new. And you go back to building aid, correct me if you're wrong, but I've looked into this. Chances of Hampstead getting building aid is very, very, very slim.
Here.
Number one, we are a growing town. There are so many towns that are gonna come in and grab that money before they even look at Hampstead. So to put all this off on the flimsy chance that we may get building aid, and then even if we get building aid, you go back to, how do you know the voter's gonna vote for it then? You don't. And it's not our job to predict that. Our only job is to have done what we should have done, put this on the warrant for the kids. That's it. So here we are, and so what do we do now? Nothing?
There's new information in front of us, if we wanna have a discussion about something new.
I fully
Hope we
wanted
hear
to
it.
support the whole launch. I understand this would have been just the third year. But town voted it down many, many times. And I understand. I know myself as a homeowner, to take a big hit. For example, on my roof, I had to break that up into 2 different times. 1 year, I did this side of the roof. 2 years later, I did the other side of the house. So, in compromise sake, I switched from the full bond position, not your position, but the full bond position. Believe me, I know this town could vote this in. But we don't have people to come out and help us knock on doors. The groups that are in this town that use our schools and use our cafeterias, I don't see them supporting us either. Maybe individuals at the polls, but not as a group, not like some other towns. Quote me if I'm wrong, but you've lived in other towns where those groups come out in force to help you. They put their name behind the project. So no matter compromise, I went to break it up. I never intended for us not to put anything. As far as I'm concerned, I'm gonna try my darndest tonight to put one of these 2 forward. And if we need to postpone this meeting for Jason to hear this, then we can talk all night, and we can adjourn and wait another day, because I want him to weigh in on this.
Jason's going all week.
We can, I don't know what the time frame is, but
And public hearings.
It's next week, it's next Tuesday.
so your concern with, let's just talk about C. Your concern with C is the music.
My concern with C is that it does do a nice job of opening the traffic flow of the building in a lot of sense. It does, we would take the existing office space and repurpose it for instructional space, so it does address instructional space, but we do end up with a net loss of a music room, which is a program change.
So I forget, the nurse was moving down to the music?
Yes,
Yeah.
basically, the stage area was gonna turn into the music room.
So could the offices where you are be the nurse?
Yes. Yes, that would be.
Right, so that problem is solved.
So that
But
would
now
be.
we need to go back, we would need to go back and get different numbers, because that's going to change our numbers again.
Well, if they're gonna
Which
mess
ma-
around with the stage and put a nurse there, they can take offices and put a nurse there, and I can't imagine it's gonna be
No, but
that much more,
are
right?
you talking about putting the nurse in the current administrative offices?
I actually don't think that's a bad concept,
Right near the elevator?
It's, the concept is to be near the office and be near the elevator, and that is the big lacking portion we have right now.
Plumbing.
Yeah, and there
parents
is
can
plumbing
pick
that
up
already
kids
exists
without
there,
walking through the school.
because there is bathroom needs right there, so I don't see it as, it is a shift of thought process. We have to have someone reconfigure the numbers and dollars, but not a builder or an architect, I can't see it being that dramatically different, because the amount of square footage that is in that office, it would mean probably a portion of that would become the nurse's office, and the rest of it would still be available for other functions, such as, maybe in a small instructional space or something like that. Could put a couple of.
Hampton space of special ed.
Yeah, it could be instructional space for special ed or remediation or something. And then you have your administrative structure out front, we'd open up the stairwell. Then we would retain the music room in its current configuration. The 60s wing renovation, the significant gap there is, this does not include the stairwell, but it does address that ventilation, and your heat loss there is big. It is certainly not a green space. I'll give you a specific thing that I showed to Karen the other day, is those windows that are in that 60 wing, they're literally two pieces of plexiglass with a little bit of fiber insulation in between. Great 1990s technology on windows. There's a lot of heat loss there, and that is also the place that gets the most hit from the sun. So some of the early architectural looks. I'm not going to advise a board, but I'm going to tell you, if you did take a look at, the administrative structure with, consideration for the music room, that would open up the traffic flow of the building significantly, and, figure out how to take care of the nurse's office, or maybe just not move the nurse's office.
I would think if you're gonna construct a new office on the stage versus maybe even using some of the same layout, I can't imagine it being that much more.
I don't,
You could-
I wasn't implying that it would be more.
Right,
I meant
right.
it
No,
would
I'm
be a
just,
different number if we're trying to
Right,
budget it somewhere.
right. So, knowing that phase B, we were trying to put it on a non-bond, taking out the stairwell, taking some of the other things out. If you thought that we were gonna do the admin and nursing this year on a non-bond, and then next year, the year after, whatever, I don't know, our phase B included the stairwell, and, right? Would you want to do C then B, or would you wanna be, what?
I think your biggest, you've lived with the 60s wing with its limitations. You put in that adaptation with the ventilation,
Right.
those big massive air conditioning window units that we do have there. It's what you have now, that's what you're living with, it's better than what we had 6 months ago. That's workable and livable, it's not ideal. But I think the traffic flow in the building would be significantly improved by putting that administrative office out front. Safety wise, I think your school would be a lot safer school by putting that out front, and then reconfigure that office space for more instructional space, and maybe just not move the nurse's office. That could be part of the future project, like you're saying, do something else later on. But we're still not getting at something that I did mention to Karen with this very significant, more instructional space. Just by
Classrooms.
putting in an office and acquiring a little bit of, literally, if you take the square footage that's dedicated to our office space right now, it's probably the equivalent of one classroom. So if we move things around, we may relax things somewhere else, but maybe we'll acquire a classroom by moving things around.
Jeff, just talking about C again. Just a day to get the revised numbers probably? I don't know. I don't know. 2 days a week, I don't know.
I think it takes several days, but I certainly appreciate Gino's ability to handle the numbers. I think this type of thing it's so the request that I had to pull the pipes out, very discreet request. When you have to go in and start removing was been planned for that nurse's office in there and more in depth. I don't know. I think a day, 2 days would be tight. Anyway, I think the price is only going to go down.
So what do you want? You want a number? Would you know?
Yeah, a revised number without the nurse's office. But I think, and I don't know how many days it's gonna take, that was the question, and I don't know how many days that would take.
I'm confident that what you just proposed will fit in that
Yes,
Right.
easily,
yes. And in fact,
with money to spare.
yes, and I think that it would give you, if you needed to, and it, believe me, structure of the administrative office is much like what you see here, concrete block walls. If you needed to make some adjustments to that current administrative space, there's probably no money there to do that. Adjust it to the nurse's office or classroom space.
Oh, yeah, you're just putting walls up in between.
Well, you're probably taking walls down.
Can I be
No,
a
no,
little-
no, yeah, yes, but the outside envelope isn't changing.
Can I
So
just
it's-
be a little bit more bold here? Leave the nurse's office where it is. And put that into your future project, phase, for the next phase. And we were just talking here amongst the three of us. The amount of space that's dedicated in a classroom directly above the office is basically a reconfigured classroom, which is what we use for special education, referred to commonly as the learning center. If we brought that downstairs, it would naturally have a bunch of segregated little rooms. You could put the entire learning center there. I would reacquire a classroom, one classroom
But no
upstairs.
major structural renovation.
Correct. Which means you live with the existing nurse's office, which fits compliance where we are now. The big gain is you're acquiring that stairwell, which is safety and traffic flow, and we're also creating a far better intercept out in front of the building, so when parents come into the building, not only are they welcomed properly, but they're secured properly, so the children can move around their building. I mean, the simple story would be a first grader can go down to see the music group teacher without having to have an escort.
So I'm hearing you say that between, if you had to choose, you had a choice between phase B only or C, we'll get more.
Yes, and I think the taxpayers are
More
probably paying a lot of wasted money with the
Yeah, well,
six piece
that's up to
wing,
them.
but to me, I think the biggest piece that I think is speaking what the needs for children are right now.
Mhm.
For instructional space, this is a step forward for instruction.
I would see it, when we do the next phase, it's gonna be a lot larger than what you just saw on that B thing. So if we had an opportunity for building aid, that's where it's gonna come in. You get the stairwell, who knows what we get.
Yes.
Yeah, that scaled down B phase.
No, that was.
I'm not comfortable with that phase at all. I think
That's why we abandoned it. That's
Yeah.
what we said.
I mean, it's even less than what we abandoned. This is even.
No, I know, that's right.
That's what makes C more, of these two options, that makes C more valuable than B, I think, long term.
This isn't about my legacy on the board. I don't care if anybody remembers if I was on the board. But I'm not gonna go to the public hearing and put up nothing. That's not an option for me. So I'll stay here all night, I'll extend the meeting until he can come back.
We can't,
But
okay.
safety is number one of our kids, and we've talked about it a million times. The front entrance of that school is messed up. It's a safety nightmare. Parents standing on the stairwell when kids are coming down, and even get out of the way, they're all over the place, people letting one another in.
You don't know who's coming in.
It's a nightmare. So if we could put this up,
I'm gonna put this out there, I don't know, so you're probably looking for a number, to do a warrant, to have a number to finalize that for, right? If you were interested in the plan, we didn't think that it's going to exceed that amount, right? We don't think it's going to exceed the amount that we're looking at.
we won't let it exceed. Right?
Well,
Not to exceed.
yeah,
Yeah.
but when we get that number, we can just change the warrant, right, reduce it. Can we do that?
You have to disclose at the public hearing, all money items. So this would,
Times
yeah, this would need to be locked in Tuesday,
short up
next
before.
week from then. Yeah, for the public hearing.
Could the board vote before the public hearing to finalize that number? So we have the warrant, right? The warrant itself, the proposed warrant would be in existence. It would just be a matter of.
I don't want to give bad advice,
Mm.
right? So I want to be sure we're in good shape.
Sure, I agree.
I do believe the project, as discussed with the concessions that have been addressed, can be done for the numbers that you discussed.
I would agree.
It might look a little bit differently, but I don't think it's going to exceed that number.
I agree.
So I don't think the board's at risk. I think if you change the number, you might have to have a second public hearing. I'm not sure about that. That's why I don't want to give bad advice about what you can and can't do, but I am comfortable with that project as presented with concessions addressed would not exceed that 1.7 number.
The reason I bring it up is so if the issue to hold this, hold warrants, hold up the whole warrant for moving forward, pending that number, it's not going to exceed it when it's sold.
Well, we have to have a discussion about how people are interested in, if you're interested in putting this forward, how are we funding this? Are we talking about budgetary, or are you talking about a one-time expense on the warrant? Seems like there's been some discussion. So,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, so as presented, it looks like a one-time, you know,
I don't know.
withdrawal from
All I
capital
was-
reserve
yeah.
and a number that would be obviously to make those work. I think my comfort level changes a bit when we start trying to draw from 3 and 4 and 5 different places because if one of those things fails, it doesn't work. I mean, this is 2, right?
Doesn't the capital reserve still have to be put into the budget?
If we put it in a warrant and the warrant's approved, then it gets added to the budget after.
So it doesn't have to be listed in the budget that's on the
Correct.
ballot.
So that budget number doesn't change, but this obviously would be a standalone item that people would see. That's an expense of 1.7. It just identifies where it's coming from, you know, how much is new money being raised and what's being withdrawn from capital reserve, correct?
In fact, it's almost the opposite if it were included in the budget, even though, let's say the project marked 1.7, let's say, you wanted to put 100,000, the budget's 100,000 reserve. In the budget, we'd be adding 700,000. So it really would inflate that operating budget.
Well, that's why I was asking, because we had the discussion before, that that's a very hard message to explain to people. And you run the risk of then the budget failing, because even though you're, that, what looks like 700,000 is over the default.
Even though
I'm
it's,
trying to
even
explain,
though it's
but
been
that's,
raised.
right, correct, but that's why I was asking the question.
So it's almost better in a way to have it in more, it's not increasing.
And then it's money that you saved and new money. So I think that's the message, right? You're talking about drawing 750,000, money saved and new money shortly, you know, a little under $1.95 million, whatever.
Not low, not 100,000.
So that's what we talked about. I mean, I know Karen wanted the full bond, and I did, but, you know, I conceded to break it up. And this is breaking it up. Safety is number 1. This is safety. You know, how many times have I asked you, when we're asking questions, and you guys might say to us, you know, it's up to you. No. What do you think? And I always, you know, when we were talking about the SRO or the psychologist, is it psychologist, is that the title? And
Social worker.
Social worker. I don't know if it was you, Maria, I'd rather have a social worker. We were able to get 2, both, but I always defer to you. You know, I'm gonna be off this board in March. I'm still gonna live in town, I'm still gonna be around, you know, I'm still a parent, but, you know, it's your house, a little more than mine. All of you guys. So if you have anything to say, say it. I always wanna hear what you have to say. I wanna hear what the public has to say. Kathleen's here. Most of the time people don't come, but, so, you know, a future project, a future bigger project might get some aid. I don't know. The chances is probably still slim, but I think we have to do something. We decided not to put the full bond up. We decided to break it up, and now we got to put something up. And if they vote no, they vote no.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? I'm trying to follow the logic streams here. There is $750,000 now sitting in capital reserve.
Right.
So if you have a bond, as Jeff had recommended, the bond would, not a bond, excuse me, a warrant article, you would be approving an expenditure of $1.75 million, of which $750,000 would be using existing savings. In other words, you're gonna drain your savings account. and you're asking for $1 million of new money, that would be a one-time expenditure. So it's a simple warrant article that is asking for the expenditure of 1.75 million, of which funding would come in here and in here. So basically, new tax revenue would be $1 million, and savings would be $750,000, using round numbers. And if we do adapt this a little bit and we say, keep the existing nurse's office, you know you're not gonna receive this number, because we don't need to rip apart a whole stage structure and all of that stuff. So that is probably a significant amount of money. So it's conceivable this number could drop down a bit more, but if you go with not to exceed, then that allows you the discretion, which you could tell the voters, which is simply you don't use it or whatever. I mean, you have to figure out some logic stream with your voters. I think this addresses by giving us the net gain of one classroom. It addresses the school safety, the school traffic flow of students, which are major themes that we've been talking about for a few years. It also talks about the comfort of the visitors and intrusion and all of the balance there, so I think that is a safety gain here. This sounds to me like this is probably a project that can be done rapidly without being significant disruption. I do remember the conversation with Gino and the builders about doing this portion of the project. This is basically taking a big hole in front where the flagpole is and attaching structure to the front of the building. And I do remember a lot of conversation that could be a quick project. When I say quick, I don't mean it's gonna be done right around July 1st and we're gonna be opening school with it done. But it would be probably a fall project, maybe even before winter flies. I do remember that part of the conversation. And since they're focusing on one, his problem was before it was we were focusing on 3 locations around the school building. This puts it in a location, so you don't have to disrupt traffic patterns and all that other stuff. So you're asking for me to be very straightforward. I think this one is probably the most logical next step. It's not all the steps that I think everybody in this room would like to see, but it certainly is a step forward.
So, how do we get here? I think it's important, if you're just trying to catch up. So we had 4 phases, right? A, B, C, and D, right? I think all of the phases have an impact on families, student, and learning. And then so this construction team, this board, we've had lots of discussions about if we do this, this may impact that. And so this, how do we get to C? Well, C, it appears to me, this is the least expensive and the least disruptive to any of the other 3 phases. Does everybody else see it that way? Like this is kind of a standalone phase, doesn't have an impact on the other phases.
It is safety related also.
It's safety related, it also has I think it has the least concessions in terms of making sure that all the parts of this phase are being addressed instead of a scaled down version of one of the other phases, which is what we try to do with B. I think everybody, the 60s wing needs to be addressed, but we want it to be done properly. We don't want to scale it down and only kind of do it. We want to really do it. So I think, if I were somebody watching and hadn't been part of all this, I'd wonder like, what took you so long to get to this part, or what happened to the other parts. I think that's the Reader's Digest version of how we got here. So for me, it would be this is the least disruptive to the other 3 phases. It's the least expensive with the least amount of concessions in terms of a complete phase being done. That would be how I would see it.
Any additional costs for the safety?
Hey, that's what I mean. You're picking, the concessions have been mitigated. You have a music room, you're grabbing a classroom, you need administrative offices. So they help you with special ed. I think it does a lot. So if I were someone saying like, did you get the most bang for the buck of all the things that we've talked about? This one seems to give you the most bang for the buck.
I think one of the biggest problems with the 60s wing project, even as proposed, is inevitable that there's going to be some other work that's going to be done that's disrupting what we've already done. And that's not entirely as productive as I think it needs to be for that project.
We also have to think about wait time. Just doesn't necessarily mean the next phase will be taken care of a year or 2 later. Could be some time, and so some of those things you talked about retrofitting things and only things partially done, waiting for the next phase that it could take a little longer than perhaps we're comfortable with. So this completes this phase without any disruption to the other 3 phases. So it seems to make a lot of sense to me.
I think when you're looking at the safety aspect of it, imagine having the 60s wing done, which has to be more energy efficient, but we've got classroom environments a lot better, I think, in that space.
Better.
Better.
I don't
A
know.
lot better, well, more manageable and bearable, but I would have a hard time with this project not dealing with safety. We're doing all this work, we're dealing with safety. The biggest risk in that building at this point, the way the building is set up, is that crash safety, so. I think that doing it at a different time allows us to relocate that without undoing anything we've done as far as this renovation is concerned.
And I can say it's consistent with, you know, I've been here for 8 years, and lots of different board members. The one thing that's been consistent from 2012 on is safety has been a priority for the school board. No matter who's sitting in those 5 seats, this stays consistent with that same theme, all the way back to when we first started in terms of making improvements. So I think that's another important factor.
Okay, if someone, I will say one thing, and I don't know how I've turned into the non-advocate for any building. However, I would like to at least mention the fact that we are putting this forward in 1 year, which I don't disagree with, but I would like some consideration of what that does for the larger project going forward. Because as soon as this hits in 1 year, judging by the history of comments and the way typically the town has leaned, we're looking at probably 5 years before we can put something else up that's going to affect taxes in any large way. And I know we're not here for, I know we are here for the kids. I absolutely believe we are, and I believe everyone on this board is here for the kids. But I do want to mention that. I do think it has an impact on the larger project going forward.
The thing for me, one thing that we've talked about is this capital reserve. We have $750,000, right? Which is a lot of money towards this. And then we're talking about putting another $400,000 in as long as it's still there at the end of the next budget cycle. And what we had discussed was if the larger project wouldn't pass next year, we would have enough in capital reserve to take care of all of the C, all of phase C. Because that would be $1.1, $1.2 million. We've talked about challenging the budget, and that would bring us up to that, you know, closer to $2.2 million, which would take care of everything you see here plus the stairwell. So our backup plan for the following year would have been complete of C. So my question to Dillard is, if it was a matter of holding out 1 year for C and get everything including stairwell, would you still say B is your priority?
I think that's a strategic
I mean,
question.
sorry, back on backwards.
Okay, that's not a strategic question which I would feel comfortable advising you on. But if you want to talk about going in and impacting learning and student safety, to me, the thing to do is what you've labeled as C. I would agree with Jeff's concept that phase B is going to roll into a lot of other pieces that need to happen, like a stairwell. That would be your best opportunity to add lots of instructional space, such as a new library or maybe a music room at that time, whatever the needs roll out to be, whatever computer looks like at that day and age. In some sense, getting this done and taking a year or so off is fine. I also want to emphasize, you were saying something here. You're training your savings account if you're doing it the way I see it here.
Right.
So you're not going to be that quick into another phase with your whatever that account is called. What is it called? Capital?
Yeah. Well, if I could, I mean, that's the budget challenge, right? Because it's got a couple of different moving parts, so you're gonna be asking us to try to make sure that we have that money in the event that they allow us to put it back in at the end. So that's the save 400. So essentially, if we were able to do that, if everything worked perfectly, we're really only taking 350 out of the 750. Really, because we're putting 400 back in. So, you know, that's
True.
doable.
That does make sense. So you're basically gonna train your savings because you know you have a good opportunity to put more money. And there's an incentive to us to be tight with money. I mean, everybody in this room that controls the budget.
So
build that savings back up so you could jump into another project sooner.
2 years ago.
The definition of soon is.
Right. Well, the other part about this, and this is a question for Jeff. So, in the event, let's just say the 1.7 that we earmarked, We come in and we finish the whole thing, we get it all done, and it's 1.3 and there's 400 left. Can you put some of that back into capital reserve and some back to the taxpayer? Does the school board have the authority to put the remaining money that goes unspent back where they want?
So that's an interesting question, and no, right? The voters would be the ones to make that determination into capital reserve. However, if we knew that we had certain other projects coming up, it would be possible perhaps to utilize some of that funding, that overage, and encumber it toward the next phase on another project. So for example, we felt confident that we're going to be addressing some aspect of the 60, going to be a ventilation, whatever it is. We said, yeah, we have $400,000 additional. Perhaps we can use that $400,000 to
Bathroom renovations, that would be my,
Yes, that was where I was
Bathrooms,
going, you know, how much
bathrooms,
authority does the board have
space.
with that
Yeah.
remaining fund? So if that's the case, and obviously the nurses area was something that was part of this C.
Yeah.
You know, what you did there could be changed by what you have left over.
Yeah, we couldn't put it into capital reserve, but certainly we could use it for other purposes.
One is which is giving it back to the taxpayer if that was a choice we weren't using.
Or
Right.
using it, yeah. I think there's enough cause here that justify it.
But those are future discussions, correct? Right, so I don't want to get too far in the future, there's a lot of moving parts in this.
I know prior we talked about the messaging of possible building I wouldn't want a message to the kids, I wouldn't want a message to the parents that we're gonna do nothing. We decided to break it up because the town hasn't voted for this project in one way or the other. Other people in town have recommended breaking it up. We made a decision to break it up. We did the work to looking at A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever, and now we're gonna do nothing. So, and you know, what we need to do, if you need to get another number, but I wanna put C up. I'm not making that motion right now because I don't know fully what entails. If something needs to happen, or another number needs to be rectified, or we just put up the 1.745.
I wanna echo what, Jim has said. You recall, yeah, I was away, at that last meeting, I said, I will support whatever you decide to put up. Obviously, I wanted the whole thing, and I made it very clear at the meeting that I would support whatever the rest of the board decided to put up. I did not say I would not support, that I would support nothing. And that's the difference.
Okay, so we need to either do a motion or we need to direct Jeff to get another number. And I guess we better put together another meeting if we're gonna extend this past tonight.
Do we need to extend it past tonight?
I would, if you'd like more, just make a recommendation. And the number changes, it goes down, lower it, or public hearing, lower it. You can't spend on something like you can't do, people would be appropriate to call a special meeting for the purposes of just starting that number this week. As long as it's up there and it's here, just deal with lowering the cap.
So we're meeting next Monday though, with Jason here,
To vote on this, or
to
to,
review the numbers and
This would be the number. Just in case, I would want to see the warrant, something put together, right? To be able for that warrant. And then you can work with the numbers. Kind of finalize the numbers next Monday. If that's the case, I'd want to double check it, I would be more likely to check it, make sure we do that.
I think you need to post a number, and if you change the number, I think you have to, if the number goes up, you have to have a second public hearing. If it went up, I'm not sure about going down, but I think those are technical kind of questions. Like I said, I don't want to offer bad advice, so.
As far as I've always been concerned with the operating budget, if we post a public hearing, if it goes up, we have to have a second public hearing. If it goes down, you can always lower.
there is some history where the board has reduced the budget after the public hearing, because typically the board meets after the hearing, to determine what the final budget is going to be. So I don't know if there's any history about doing it in a warrant article. So if you did all of this in the budget, that may be the distinction that the attorneys may need to advise. But when I've seen my 40 years watching this town do this, it's not uncommon to see them, they do something after the meeting. The board historically meets right after the public hearing to finalize it.
That's when you take your talents.
You can't do it on complex things like negotiated agreements and stuff like that. This is not a negotiated agreement. This is setting a budget to get a project done.
So, we have a full board, vote on whether or not we do this.
You wouldn't be voting, right, it's not being.
What?
It's not, right, you could vote for the warrant, but you could vote for the warrant together.
Well, David's saying wait for Jason, right?
Yeah, and see whatever Gino comes back with.
We have posting requirements, I'm sure it should be a public hearing.
7
You
days,
know, yeah, but we can't post it Monday for Tuesday.
that's right.
It's a 7-day post. I'm not, again, I'm not for bad advice. There's a lot of rules involved in this, but I was under the impression it was a 7-day posting. That's what, when they want us to drop dead date is the 6th. Because we want to post it tomorrow, so you'd have it posted 7 days in advance of the public hearing. That's disclosing all the money items, anything that's a non-money item, you know, those can wait to the deliberative session, but money items, I believe, have to be posted and disclosed.
Doesn't mean it can't be voted.
Correct.
So we have to do it tonight. If we're putting it on the warrant, it needs to be done tonight. So if there's a motion to be made, somebody make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion for warrant article for the non-bond C project of $1.745 million.
Second.
If you want a sample,
You can,
so I would think it would read something along the lines of shall the voters of the Hampstead School District raise and appropriate the sum of $1,725,000 construct the front entrance and office area, utilizing $750,000 from existing school renovation, construction, capital improvement, capital reserve fund established in 2006. So we would go something like that.
Can I ask a question? Do you need to be so specific about there? Because if you use that language when I just heard, if we, for example, you decided you had another $300,000 that wasn't needed because of this change of thought, or you could then use it to say, do bathrooms upstairs or some other internal improvements. Would it be more
So to,
beneficial to make that language a little bit less stringent on where, but you could simply say at the Hampstead School.
I'm looking at this project as a project, but this project as a project is not discrete.
Right.
We would be moving classrooms right down and repurposing some space, so maybe ancillary repairs or related repairs.
Need some language to allow
So
discretion, so let's just say we had to spend some money to move something else around the building.
So it would be to construct a front office, front entrance and office area, along with ancillary.
Other educational spaces within the Hampstead Central School building, because that would really make it clear that you're not taking a hole somewhere else.
I'm gonna hold on this for a second. I'm just trying to find out about posting for anything that's dollar amounts.
Jim, can I just clarify that you want for non-bond?
I was just reading that, I don't know, like, he can,
So you made the motion.
Yeah.
There's a second to the motion to the floor, so
I don't have a second.
Karen
I
did.
did.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I'm working on some language here that would capture that, then you can modify your motion, modify the second, adopt.
Talking about,
Can you possibly say that?
I don't know.
Come on now.
Kathy. Oh, Kathy.
She's lost. She's really good. She may come back and say that you don't even be so specific about line items.
He's asking her about, like, could we do it Monday?
Yeah.
I would just like to get that answer before.
I haven't been wanting to speak up, but I'm pretty sure you need to put a 7-day notice out there, so I think you have to decide tonight.
Well, we need to
Put
public
them out
Her
comments.
initial
tomorrow.
response was
But
no.
Kathy will tell you.
Yeah, her initial response was no,
Okay,
so.
We could stop and do public comments.
perfect.
No, I
Yeah,
didn't-
you're
I
not in
didn't
public
say
comments.
anything.
Shh.
You're
Raise
on-
your hand.
You're on a pause, we're on a timeout right now.
Recess.
Thanks, yeah. I appreciate it.
So what the boss say?
The $1 million advice. Okay, so what you can do is you should put it together tonight, primarily because it needs to go through, and you announce it at your public hearing. You can change it at the public, you finalize it after the public hearing, but you should put something together tonight to get approved. It goes through DRA, and the attorneys will look at it, and then you can change it after the public hearing, after you announce it. If you add money after the public hearing, you have to have a second public hearing.
So we take the vote tonight,
You would take that to put it together,
right,
and then you finalize it after public hearing, after the public hearing. But we need the direction to put it together.
right.
That makes sense. So-
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Need a motion, a second.
Oh.
What's the, you're just voting, what, do you care about the language?
I thought we needed the language to give it to the attorneys to,
Yeah. So you're just voting on the language that I have here,
that's what I thought we did.
or you're just voting to put it together?
Yeah, I want you to picture why I'm saying what I'm saying.
I
You-
wanna make
you
sure we're
wouldn't
doing it the right
wanna
way.
go to a public hearing and try to announce something and not have it already sort of looked at by legal and the DRA.
Right.
To know it's okay to withdraw this money from the capital reserve and to raise and appropriate this amount. So that's what you're doing now, is making sure that you have that language
Base
correct,
language.
so that he can go do the work and bring back to you. Now, you can meet Monday night, you don't really need to, because you can do it at the public hearing and then finalize it. But you're gonna wanna know what you're presenting.
Mhm.
You're not gonna wanna build that plane in the sky, right, at the public hearing.
But first, there was so much discrepancy among 4 board members here. First, the vote has to be taken as to whether or not we're gonna move forward
That's correct.
with AC before we can get into the language.
Correct, that will, yeah, so,
Right.
but yeah, that gives us the direction to do the next thing.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's what you choose.
So we're good?
We're good, I think everybody understands the advice we got.
Jim's motion was to move forward with base,
Yes.
and I seconded that.
Yes.
Can we have a discussion?
Yeah, we can have a discussion.
So I was thinking, my wife and I moved here in 1999. We didn't have kids until 2010. They first started to go to Central School, and I wondered, why does everybody say Hampstead has good schools? Because I don't see it. Now, my kids weren't at school at that point, and then they went in. They had Mrs. Mahoney. Fantastic. Both of my kids, 2 years. Mrs. Sandler, all these teachers, the principals, fantastic. But the building sucks. The town has voted this project down year after year in different fashion. Not Karen, but us. Specifically, I'll talk about myself. I compromised because I thought about myself and my money concerns at my house and how I break up projects to get things done. So I said, yeah, okay, let's do it this way. Even though I fully agree with Karen, this town could vote it through. They got their act together. The people came together as a community. So we did the work. We broke it up into projects. We need to put something forward. My wife will not be happy with me, and I know people in this town are going to come out at that public hearing and not be happy. And if you look on this page, what does that say? Citizen petition. I bet you will have a citizen petition. Because if the school board isn't going to do it, one of the parents will. I'm asking both of you, because I know Karen stands up, and I wish Jason was here, to vote for this. Please. If they want to vote it down, so be it. You heard what Dillard said, and I'm sure these other people here for the same damn reason. And that's all I gotta say.
So I'll say, just, I think I'm the only one here that still has children that's to go to the school. I think everybody else has had their children go through it. I honestly feel that putting up C in a one-year bond is gonna jeopardize for my kids to have those 60s renovation, better music room, better gym, a better consolidated school. Because I think a one and done will have a negative impact on the long term. I think that we have not thought this through enough on this phase C alone. I think that I have questions for Gino about this. I think, again, just a one and done on just phase C doesn't get us really what we want in the long term. I actually, I hear you, Dylan. I think the phase B, in my eyes, is much more priority.
He said
That if I
C.
was, I know, I said, I disagree with him. My priority, looking at this and hearing everything for the last probably 3 years, 60s wing, 60s wing, 60s wing, until probably last year, and maybe 2 years ago, was the first time I was really hearing about the security in the avenue. I'm not disagreeing with you at all on it, but I think that if we go forward with this, it jeopardizes everything else too much. And that, let's say we don't go through with anything this year. Let's say that next year we go with the full project. We have enough in capital reserve to pick which one we do without even having to go to a bond, without having to go to a warrant article. We have enough in capital reserve, plus challenging some of the budget, that we can pay for either B or C without going to the voters. So that's where my stance is on this. It's not that I don't want this. Again, I'm the only one with children that's still going. In about 3 years, I have my next child going through these schools. And I want this child to have as much as possible in that school system. This, I feel, will jeopardize all of that. This will make sure that she is still wearing gloves in the middle of winter in the 60s wing. Or it's 94 degrees in June when the parents go to visit and see what they've done for a project. I just don't.
At any point, whether it's this project or anything else, the voters could jeopardize it.
Point of clarification, if I may, I believe you need voter approval to touch anything in capital reserve.
Yeah, that's why it would
Regardless.
be in the motion.
So even if, well, he just said that in the future, he would be able to build up the money in capital reserve and not involve the voters, that would be false. You need the voter approval to touch the capital reserve.
Which is a lot easier to do than.
I
Then
just wanted to
asking
make
for
sure that the
additional
correct
money.
information's out there.
Can I just speak, because I don't think we have a disagreement here, I think we have a common understanding that by doing a portion of the project, you put the bigger project at peril.
Yeah.
The question that was asked to me
Sorry.
earlier is, where do we start? Which is the one, if we can only do one of these projects, which is gonna be the biggest gain for what the needs of the building are? That's where I came to say that from what I see here, C addresses that, which means when your child shows up, what you're referring to is the cold into the building. We already have a patchwork solution in there. In the world of going to buy and pay, good, better, best, or is it the other way around? I don't know.
Yeah.
What we've got in the 60s wing right now is a little bit better than what's there. We did see with a little bit of time that we had that going in the fall, that the climate did improve significantly. Some of the teachers even ran it beyond the hot season, and it did make some gains. It's certainly not as good as what we would see in a full-scale project. Certainly having all of the space that was projected for need is there. But if you go back to the core question I was responding to earlier, which was, how do we make the facility better for our students? And the other one is safety has always been, we mentioned that earlier. It really has been the major theme. The 60s wing has been part of the conversation in some of this community because that's an easy one to explain to the community because it's basically a warehouse for classrooms. So I think this board has done a nice job of trying to address that on a short-term solution. To me, it was like the next declaration of what you got out of portables. Portables were a short-term solution, that solution died. What you've done in the 60s wing is going to die. It's not going to be a permanent solution. However, by putting an office in front of the building, opening the stairwell, that is more permanent solution to some of the problems. By acquiring one additional classroom space that is starting to address some more permanent solution. So I would say that if you really want to pick one phase to do, this is probably the one that is the most impactful for all students and staff and parents. Long term, I mean, if you really want to hold off and do the whole project, you're there. If you go to the 60s wing, you're, which gap do you want to buy? I mean, you want a Ford or you want a Chevy or
Tesla.
You know, just a little correction, I don't have kids there anymore, but 3 of my kids went through that school. And it hasn't changed. One of my older ones is that no work has been done on that school in over 30 years. It looks the same now as it did when my last child went there. And now I do have 2 grandchildren there that still have to finish out, and nothing's being done for them. But more importantly, this isn't about whether I have kids there or you have kids there. This is about what's doing the right and in the best interest for all the children and for education in our town. This isn't a personal thing that we need to get it done for my grandchild or your last child coming through. It's not how this board operates. We're supposed to look at the whole picture and do what's in the best interest for the district as a whole. And there is absolutely no guarantee that by waiting a year, by stalling, by delaying a year, that it will pass next year. They're all ifs. I think I just can't see delaying any further and not doing anything for the kids. If you had a crystal ball and said, hey, if we don't put anything forward this year, the town's gonna really rally around us and they're gonna vote for this, I'd be on board with you. But I don't see that. And to delay and stall, what's killing this project right now is everyone in town watching the indecisiveness of this board. Going back and forth. We've had different boards in this town. We had boards years ago. The makeup is very different. And they went in a very different direction. But they had a direction, and they're steadfast to it, they put it forward, and they dealt with it. It wasn't, oh, we'll do all of it, we'll spend $20,000 and we'll do phases. Well, the messaging is gonna be too hard, so we're gonna come back and we're not gonna do phases. We're gonna look at A and B. Indecisiveness is what's killing this project right now.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, I'm gonna call the question. All in favor? Opposed?
It's a tie vote, so yes. It's a tie. Yes.
Any other business to bring before the board? Okay,